welcome to the next episode of Coffee and Comebacks, the podcast that aims to bring the threads of performance and how we've overcome challenges from both the sports, the military environment into business. And who better to have on today than George Kruis? If you follow rugby in any way at all, you will be itching to hear what George has to say, and you will know that George has 45 international caps. George is a player for the Saracens, also for England and the British Lions, and he did a short tour in Japan, I think, so maybe touch on that. But George is now the founder and director of Fourfive. So it's a CBD nutrition and wellness company, and George is going to touch on that. We'll obviously speak about George's rugby career, but really keen to find out about George's decision to retire, going through the transition process, and the rapid growth really of George's business that he founded with his fellow colleague and rugby player Dominic. So George, thank you so much for joining us today. Really excited about this conversation. Would you be able to do a bit more justice to your introduction and tell everybody about you and who you are?
Oh, I kind of liked it. Thanks for having us on. I don't know, I'm not really one for self-promotion. These are the awkward questions, but very privileged to have played a long and fruitful sort of rugby career. I was part of a Saracens team, which we had a good level of I guess domination over a good 10 years period. Won a lot of domestic and European trophies, won some good bits with England as well, and then decided to in probably the last couple of years went over to Japan for a year and a half, so 2 seasons, and managed to pick up a couple of trophies there. So it's been wildly better than what I could have imagined. I was by own self-admission pretty rubbish. I was a bit more academic led probably when I started playing rugby, and I wasn't part of any academies. I kind of went into rugby a little bit later, just post school, rather than a lot of the lads might have been there from 13, 14, and I managed to find a niche in what I could do and try to do it very well and work hard. And I'm extremely, like I said, extremely grateful for the opportunities. And I think probably the big things I cherished from my career was the ability to have like a lot of my friends, family, go to different countries, go watch me in New Zealand, Australia, France, all across the world, and have some epic memories off the back of it. So done well and content with it. And now it's also given me a huge leg hold into, or step up into the next area of my life, which is something I'm equally as passionate about. Yeah,
I know, and I'm really excited about going on that. But sticking with rugby for a moment, I mean, first, like you say, just an incredible, the incredible. If you got a trophy room, I bet it's quite impressive. If we
trophy room, no,
someone who doesn't like self-promotion, probably not.
A trophy, no. Players are different. Some players will have like a den room or their office, and they'll plaster it with what they've done. But I'm pretty. I've got them in a box. But it's more the photos and the memories that I'll have off the back of that.
So it'd be really good to go back to the start of rugby, because I think it's been really inspirational for a lot of people listening as well, when they think about wanting to have a career in professional sport. And there's a common perception, and that, I guess it is the case in many sports, where you need to have started really young, and it's about getting those hours in. I think I read a book once about 1,000 hours being the absolute minimum before you're at a sort of high competitive standard. But you really got into rugby in around sixth form. So can you just talk us through how you sort of came into the sport at that age and then developed into the, as we've already said, that world-class player that you were?
I find it fascinating, that whole concept of like when players like like for me, what the biggest thing I found fascinating was when I look at the, say, under 16s England team, under 18s England team, under 20s England team, and then you look at how many of those players then make it into the, say, England team. Like the drop off is just so significant. But then when I'm 16 and I'm playing at school level, and you hear that, you know, you'll be playing against the under England 16 player, like, you think they're the be all and end all, and I think that sort of concept of when you're younger and you think, wow, that, like, they're, because they play for under 16, they're definitely going to play for England when they're older. Like, it's just so different. I think like, you can be great when you're younger, that doesn't necessarily mean you'll be great when you're older, and vice versa. So I think a lot of it just comes down to, like, pure persistent or hard work, and like how much you're willing to take, how much you're willing to sacrifice, as is a lot of, you know, people who do well in business. It's a pretty simple formula, that it's a lot of the time it's luck and how much you're willing to put in. So I think that route, I definitely, yeah, I'd played like a good amount of games. I really enjoyed my social rugby as part of a really good fun like grassroots club called Dorking. Really enjoyed that.
Been to a few tournaments there.
Yeah,
Settled
exactly.
in the Surrey Hills, yeah,
it's good. It was good crack, and I think we had a very good run team, which, you know, was emphasis on social first. And I think that's when, like, if you can get people enjoying the sport, enjoying business, enjoying whatever it is, you know, they definitely stick around longer. The longer you stick around, the better you get. So I think for me, it was the fact that I was playing a lot of rugby. I probably started to take it a little bit more serious when I was, like, 17, 18. And then I was lucky enough to get a trial straight off the back of school, really. And then they decided to keep me for a few weeks. Turned into a few years, and sort of 10 years later, I was still there.
And they were stuck with you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But no, like, I think for me, it was like people look for different stuff and different players, and for me, I think they just saw, like, I could work hard. I was willing to put in the graft, and I think, like I said, if you have that attribute long enough, then, you know, if you're around decent players, decent coaches, then you're gonna turn out all right enough, I'd say.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that I'm sure we've heard it a lot, where you speak about, or, you know, we, as in the collective, speak about the difference between talents, because obviously you can have talent, but if you don't have the mindset, you don't have the consistency and persistency and all of those things, and exactly the same in business, then actually, you know, there are people that may be less talented that go further because they're able to really be determined and work with the right people and build the right people around them. And definitely be good to talk about that from a business aspect when we get onto that. But just before we move on from your rugby career, you know, obviously with such a, was it 13, 14 years that you had your professional career through, you know, a couple of injuries. Think about 10 years ago, you had a knee injury, for example, had a few months out, and we all know how frustrating that can be when your daily life is about sport and performance. You maybe just talk us through one or two of the challenges and how you dealt with them at the time.
Yeah, I'd say the hands down that the biggest one is injury. I'd had 8 operations in the end, so, like, there's a good chunk, and a lot of them around your 3 to 4 month mark. So nothing. I had like an ACL, which might take you 9 months. I've never had that, but I've just had a lot of consistent sort of niggling injuries, which are like 3-4 months operations. So those are the ones which are, that's the toughest bit I've found with sport, is like that balance of, like, putting up with pain, because some of them you'll have, like, I'd have, say, on my ankle operations, it might be hurting in January, but you play the rest of the season and you get your ankle fixed in June or July. So, like, that sort of balance of having to manage pain, seeing it impact some bits of your form, obviously is tough, because, you know, you're having to balance the pain side, but then also the mental side of, right, well, you've got to be strong enough to go, right, these things do pair up, but ultimately, you got to be playing well. And then, yeah, I think really that period when you are in rehab, when you're like, I guess sports people, especially in team sports, which is the beauty of team sports, when you're in the mix and you're playing, and it is unbelievably fun. I think when you're then injured, you are like isolated. You're in kind of twice as much as you are when you're not. You don't get to go for a coffee with the guys. You're there doing like mundane, really repetitive sort of quite asking rehab. Like it's tough work, but then also you're not out on the field with the guys sort of enjoying the better bits of rugby. It is just head down sort of grafting bits. But that is also all part of rugby. And I think like when you talk about the persistence at the beginning, or sort of like that ability to work and graft hard, it's as much as like when things are going well as when things are going poorly. And I think that side of it is where it can overshadow things like talent a lot of the times, especially over years and years as you grow on the on and off field side.
Yeah, I'd agree, and it feels like it links into that resilience aspect, doesn't it? And do you feel that so you talked about having 8 operations, a number of different injuries, do you feel like the further you got, so to say by operation 5, 6, did you feel like actually you were more able to cope with that, i.e. you were more resilient and you knew the things that you needed to be doing, and you found it almost, I guess it's never easy, but easier from a psychological perspective? Or was it the opposite?
I think like the ones at the beginning when you're young, like that's just like you just crack on. You don't really know much too different, and then I think when you start to get like bigger opportunities, like I was we were in the last training session before the start of a Six Nations campaign, where I was down to start, and someone came in on the side and basically hit my knee, and it went inwards. So one of my bones kind of popped out, and something in my ankle went. So there I was out for like 3 or 4 months, but I know I was going to miss the whole of the Six Nations, all the things that come with it in terms of caps, like monetary as well. It's a significant boost. Like the pride and passion and all the all the excitement that comes with playing for your country, like that there just in one injury, is kind of like really puts you in a crap mood for a little bit. But that is, like I said, that's sport, and it's just like it's a bit of luck. It's a bit of it's a bit of how much you can put up with it and deal with it as well. So that's definitely a persistent side, yeah. But I think the older you get as well, like you do, you definitely sort of manage your body better. Your relationships probably with the coaches are a little bit stronger, so you can negotiate and say, look, I need like you have a bit more understanding of where and how your body is, and therefore it's quite hard, because when you are injured when you're younger, you might not have ever had that injury before, and you don't really know how hard you can push your body, or not how hard, or how much you need to ease up. Whereas I think when you're older, you know the limits, and also when you should be pushing harder as well. So there's a bit more self-awareness, which can definitely help, really, really help, and give you a better understanding of, it's not necessarily my fault. It's my body is happening. This is what's happening. This is part of sport, and this is things you've got to accept.
Yeah, exactly. And it's that awareness and acceptance, isn't it, that's really key with anything, whenever it's challenging, really accepting, well, this is what it is, whether it's not about fault. So I think too often people can get stuck in the fault or the blame element, rather than going, right, it just is what it is. Now it's about how I deal with it and move forward. And obviously in life and business, that's absolutely crucial if you're going to be at success, because you will have tough times, you will hit challenges, you will have knockbacks. So no, I've no doubt that your sort of sporting career has stood you in good stead for everything that you do now. I'd love to take us on to that, and just sticking with the injury theme, really, because it's quite interesting that your decision to retire didn't come about through injury or should we call it experience or age, whatever you want to call it, which is that's a fact of sport, isn't it?
Yeah.
You will get too old to perform at the best level. Your body won't be able to do it anymore. You made that decision based on a number of other factors, and I'm sure some of your understanding, your awareness of where you're at in your career as well led to that. So you just talk us through that decision to retire and that transition aspect before we go on to talking about Fourfive as a company.
Tough one. Like I still, like, it is still a tough sorry it is still a tough one. I think for me, like I said at the beginning, I'm very fortunate to have won a heap of trophies in England, and then also for England, and then also in Japan as well. So I felt like from where I was at the very start of my career to where I've got to, I've definitely like maxed out. The big one I would like absolutely love to win would be the World Cup, and we lost it in 2019, which was tough to take. I think, yeah, that would be a huge driver, and to come back, I was eyeing up to come back from Japan to then go and play for a English-based club, and then look to see if I could get involved in the 2023 World Cup. I think, like, when I made the decision maybe about a year ago to retire, it was based on the fact that I'd have to do another 18 months at least to be in that position to do that. And like, there's never like one reason why I think someone retires. I mean, there might be if your leg's completely broken and you can't play anymore. But I think for me, it's like, okay, well, there's like the sacrifices of missing weddings, missing, seeing family, all those sort of things, because you get 11 months of the season you're playing, your weekends are taken. There's sacrifices of more injury to your body for later on in life. There's sacrifices of things like head injuries, which are now becoming quite interesting and I'd say quite topical, around concussions and how that affects people later on in life. All the, like I said, the time sacrifice, but also that it's probably like the opportunity cost of not being able. The big one was the opportunity cost of not being able to start and get fully stuck into my business, which we've been running for 4 years now. Like, to not dive in completely and have to have one eye on rugby and one eye on business. That was the larger thing, especially with the fact that we're going into, like, we're in some big retails now, like Boots, Holland Barrett, Tesco's, going into Lloyd's. Like, there's lots happening, and we've got sort of 8-9 employees. We're starting to become quite responsible for people, and I think for me, it's to have that one eye on rugby, one eye on business doesn't sit well with me anyway, because I quite like to be full in on something.
All in,
yeah, all in. And I could do that sort of one like that split focus in Japan, because I had a bit more downtime. But to come back to, say, UK, play intensely in a pretty tough division, and then also try and look towards like a World Cup sort of, or represent England again, it would be splitting the focus is too much. And I thought I'd probably be annoyed with myself my 18 months further down the line self, if that makes sense. So
yeah.
That was like, that was a long way around of basically saying a lot of different reasons. But when I looked at them all, I sat down with a sports psychologist and sort of really planned it out, and thought, like, am I going to be better off in 18 months' time having done this decision now, or am I going to be better off, not making that decision? So it was like fine margins, but like essentially I made the choice based on a number of things, which I can now look back and go, right, well, I'm happy with this decision because I've pinned my hat on these things and I can throw myself into them. So quite planned out, quite, I wouldn't say it was like an off the cuff thing. But it's a huge decision to move from something I've done for 15 years into a new chapter.
It's a crucial life decision, isn't it? And one of the things I was going to ask actually was, who did you consult when you were making that decision and sort of bounce. I mean, obviously, ultimately, that decision comes from within, but you know, we all have a support network that we build and we look to help us make that decision. And sometimes, unfortunately, we get conflicting opinions from the people that we consult with, but ultimately it has to be what you're the only one living your life. So was it just a sports psychologist, or were there other people around you? Obviously you've got your business partner Dom. You know, were there others that sort of contributed, or was it really driven by you and the business needs?
Yeah, like I probably went overboard on this because it was something I couldn't make a decision on for 3 months, and then I got in, and then I used Sports Psych for 3 months she does some bits with England, but she also does a lot of stuff with business, like, you know, heads of business as well. So she was very well positioned to like give me a rounded view on you know, of what I was trying to get out of my head, I guess. But for me, it was just like creating an 18-month personal business plan, which I can go, right, okay, well, this makes sense, because I feel like if I hadn't done that, I probably would have come to the same conclusion, but I wouldn't. But I'd probably be second guessing a lot of the stuff that I'd have done now. I'd be like, oh, I could have maybe been doing this, could have been. Whereas now it's like I've made these decisions based off these different categories that we delved into. So yeah, I'm pretty content, to be honest. With
so we're not going to see you back on the rugby pitch anytime soon, although that might be disappointment for some. Or
never
is that
say
never say never? There we go.
It's never say never, but that, yeah, unless if the business flops in the next 3 months, then maybe. But I think
yeah,
we'll be doing it.
Yeah, and we're going to go on to talk about it now, because obviously, you know, it's a big element of your future, and where, as you say, you made your decision to go all in. I am an avid user. No, it wasn't a freebie. I do actually use this. Those that have listened regularly know that I have my own challenges with operations in the last year or two, and this actually does work. So yeah, and it smells much nicer than other brands, shall we say. I won't go and talk about those, but can I just touch on something really quick, actually? It's around the sacrifice, and I think a lot of people see success and don't always recognize the sacrifice that sits beyond it. And it doesn't matter who I speak to or what I experience in life, whether it was when I was in the military, and obviously there's a huge amount of sacrifice there, as well as success, the same in the sporting environment, and then for people in business, and it might just be personal success. But never have I seen someone that has achieved success and not had to sacrifice along the way. And those sacrifices can look really quite different. But I think it's really interesting that you speak about the sacrifices, like missing weddings and having to, you know, for example, not drink if you're going to, you might be going to a wedding, but you can't drink because you're about to play, or whatever it might be. You're effectively just having to, everything needs to revolve around the sport. So I totally get that all in piece, but that links to the opportunity cost, doesn't it? And I think that is what, you know, even when I'm working with clients, for example, it's not always about what you're walking away from. Sometimes it's about what you're not able to walk towards if you're in that space, and it's weighing those opportunity costs up. And in business, you're constantly weighing those opportunity costs up, aren't you? That's part of what you're doing, whether it's what you're doing on a daily basis or bigger deals. If you take something on, well, actually it means you can't do something else. So it's that whole so did it feel like that? It was almost going, you know, either or, I'm going to have to swing. And do you see that come into your day-to-day decision making now?
Definitely. I think like the fact that I had like achieved what I wanted to achieve, I definitely still wanted to achieve more. I had that like desire and burning desire to achieve more on, you know, in rugby. But like you said, the by following that route, like the opportunity for me right now in this business is making sure that like it like we're at a point where it needs all hands on deck and sort of especially the founders of the company, they need like full attention. They need to be making the right decisions and not sort of be split on that. So, and that, like, if we can do that well for the next 2 or 3 years, that definitely will affect the rest of my life thereafter, especially in rugby. Like you earn a decent living, for sure, and it's probably money for pain, to carry for the rest of your life with all the injuries and stuff like that. But it's a good, and it will set you up really nice. But it's you have to do stuff post career, unlike maybe some footballers and so on. So for me, it's like it was very important, but also the fact that I do really enjoy it. Like I said, we're building our own team. There's a lot of aspects which you can drag from what I have done into business. But definitely, yeah. Like another, probably an opportunity cost at the moment. We are looking for an MD who can like take myself and Dom from doing a lot of like the management bits to going out and doing the selling bits. And it's the balance between, okay, well, obviously an MD will cost a decent amount. It will also mean that the team gets a better, like, a better, what they're more betterly. They are better run by people who firstly can talk English, but then
good start.
Secondly, yeah, but like obviously mine and Dom's backgrounds in rugby, it's not in managing people and doing EMI and doing all these sort of like day-to-day bits. But but we are good at maybe speaking to people. We're good at networking. We're good at being able to be a lot more close to the sales side. So that like opportunity cost of, right, we need to get someone in who can not only give the staff a better management, but also allows us to then get out the weeds and do a lot more of the sales side. That's like a big thing we're thinking about at the moment and trying to work through. But yeah, it definitely does dip into a lot of the stuff we do now.
Yeah, you see that a lot with businesses, don't you, in that growth cycle, particularly as you've been growing so quickly, where it's that sort of investing up front, because it's an investment to bring on somebody at the level of MD, but knowing that actually over time it will pay dividends. But it's just literally trying to take that leap and knowing that that's what needs to be done to sort of get to the next level. Just in terms of the brand itself, obviously you're working with a lot of rugby clubs, so Fourfive are sort of the go-to nutrition recovery. I was actually looking at I had not even read the packages, if I'm really honest, when I started using it, but I was reading it while we were sat here earlier. And obviously what it talks about here is being the banned substance tested, so to ensure that professional athletes can use it and that it's on the professional range. But also that you talk a lot about in your business about keeping people active for longer. So helping people to keep active that are active. And obviously, as you've already said, in sport, not only do you get a lot of injuries, but it's actually about recovering well, isn't it? I remember having a conversation once with somebody who's a pro triathlete, and they were saying, I always say to myself, I recover in a world-class way. So I'm doing everything when I'm recovering as though I'm a world-class athlete, because that's what I need to do. So where did the idea come from? And did it really start in the sort of rugby space? Or just love to hear the founder's story, if you like, around the business.
Yeah, like, I mean, really, it just came out of use case, really. Like it was in January 2018. So Dom, the other co-founder, and myself, both in the physio room, both had operations that month, as you do. And we're just looking at like what else we could use, really. I think in America, CBD was huge. Canada, it was huge. That side of the pond was big, especially around the recovery. And really just used the product, thought it was brilliant. Wasn't a heap of like well tested, or in fact there wasn't any very well tested, or nothing we could really rely on and trust in the UK, and just saw.
Do you mean trust? Sorry, in terms of it not being banned, so not having elements in it.
Yeah, because there's a lot of like there is a lot of like, and probably even still a lot of crap product in terms of like because THC is a product within the cannabis or hemp plant, which is something it's the stuff that will give you high within a cannabis or hemp plant. That will that will also pull a drugs test on us. So when using CBD in the UK, we were using it, but we're a bit like, okay, well, how do we know exactly without pulling it through full testing ourselves? So essentially, we just made our own brand. Spent heaps into making sure it was fully tested. Like, as an athlete, that's tested sort of like we were tested maybe 3 or 4 times a year. Where we started a cannabis-based company, we started getting tested like 10 times a year. So there was a definite,
just to see if you're trialing the products yourself.
Yeah, a definite change in attitudes from someone. But no, it was brilliant. Like, went down really well, got good benefit out of it, and I think off the back of it, just really started looking at what other products we were taking from, and mainly, I guess, like, we wanted to just ensure that as a player who was so obsessed with sort of sport and making sure that, you know, we could get back to fitness, we wanted to just represent that, but on, you know, for the everyday person who, you know, who does yoga but has a sore back, or, you know, and a lot of it is looking at especially our new product development, as well as our current products, is looking at those sort of need states. So sleep, anxiety, focus, those sort of things are areas which, you know, that in sport we look at so heavily and in so much detail, that, you know, it should be open, and it should be a platform, and there should be products that, you know, people who suffer the same issues, you know, can use products to help them in day-to-day life. And so that's like kind of what we're driven for. Again, high emphasis on quality and sort of effectiveness, and that's I guess the bedrock of how we started and where we are today.
And Fourfive, is that your shirt numbers? Or where did the name Fourfive? I don't know.
It is, yeah.
I thought it was.
It's a small nod to the fact that myself and Dom used to play sort of next to each other.
Exactly.
So 4-5.
Yeah, there we go. I thought, if I say that, it's got to be right. We could be quite embarrassing.
No, you're right.
So in terms of, so that's obviously the brand, but clearly there's quite a lot in there. You know, you've been in the sporting environment. That's what you both do. Okay, so I get that, and it's coming from lived experience and your need. But then there's a lot in, you know, manufacturing, as you say, looking for suppliers, and then it's about distribution. So how do you build those relationships? So could you maybe talk us through what were your initial challenges that you and Dom faced when you're going, right, okay, so we've got this idea, we know there's a gap in the market, it's going to benefit us and, you know, not just sports people, but actually, you know, everyday people like myself that might want to use it. So how did you then go about making this happen, basically, and what sort of barriers did you come up against?
We call them hurdles, and I think, you know, we'd be a professional sort of hurdle jumper by now. It's endless, and it's endless. I think because I think that's just businesses in general. Like every business, especially, I think you get a rosy picture when you go, oh, I'm going to set up a company, I'm going to sell it in 3 years for 8 trillion quid. You're like, okay, brilliant, let's do it. But you quickly realize, like, it's the same as like it's the same as anything. Is if you want to do something, like, there will always be some which like get lucky, and, you know, and they'll kill it within X amount of period, or, you know, they'll blow up on TikTok or whatever it is. But that's the one in a million. That is just not the representation. But you'll hear about that heaps and heaps and heaps. So I think it's like just a huge reality check for anyone who gets into business, and everyone figures it out in their own time, that, you know, it's just constant hurdle after hurdle, and like it's chipping away. It's not like glamorous bits that, you know, can that make your business. It's the we used to call it Saracens, the hard work. Yeah, we used to call it the shit people don't see. So TSPDS. And it's kind of like it might be someone charging down a kick from the opposition 10, and that kick might then be a little bit, it would be a worse kick, and then you might get the ball a little bit deeper in the half, and then you might be in a better attacking position, and it's all kind of stemmed from someone who's done something kind of hasn't been seen, but it's like, it's been, you know, its effect has been that sort of butterfly effect where then makes someone else's job a lot easier, and then the, you know, the good-looking winger on the end of the at the end of the pitch gets the score. So it's like that's the sort of mentality I think a lot of businesses. It's just endless stuff, which is sort of like a bit of grunt work, but over time you keep chipping away, and it's like just making smart moves over time. But I think for us, like most people who set up a business have like maybe a finance or a marketing background or an operations background. Like me and Dom were chucking balls at each other for a living, so it's quite hard to then go, right, well, we're good at this and this and this. We think we should do this and this and this. So I think for us, it was about creating a really good group of investors and advisors around us, and that's, I think, one of our smarter moves early doors. And then off the back of that, like we're quite open in terms of we're used to, from being coached and week to week being told, look, you're doing this crap, you need to do this better, otherwise you're not going to be picked, or this is really good, continue this. So we're quite good at like taking that feedback maybe, and also asking for it, because I think a good quality team, a good quality sports team will ask, you know, I'll ask the second row next to me, or the back row, or the captain, or the whoever, like, what could we be doing here better? And it's quite open-minded, and quite feedback isn't taken as like negative. It's not taken as an insult. People's heckles aren't up. It's not like, yeah, and you see that a lot in, you know, areas which you haven't quite got that level of like trust to then bring you that level of professionalism. I think that's quite a big area which I'd say myself and Dom haven't been in sport for a long time, can wear the fact that, you know, we've got a lot of stuff to improve on, and leave the egos at the door, I say.
Yeah, and it's that aspect of, no, it's brilliant. That's why you're on here. We want you to. But the transferable skills element, I was speaking to somebody this morning, actually. We're doing some work together around the ex-military, because obviously I do a lot of work in that space as a veteran. And I think, you know, we were talking about how we support veterans when they're leaving, and the same in the sports world, where it can be difficult when you're in that world to think about, well, what do you offer to certain spaces of business? Because if you go, oh, well, I just chuck balls around, so basically I can only really go into rugby, or, you know, actually we know there's a huge amount of transferable skills in there, and that feedback element and that constant search for performance, constant improvement, that's so valuable. I mean, well, it's invaluable when you're in business, particularly if you want to be a high performing business. And I love that message around the endless hurdles, because there's a phrase that I've heard at a company I was previously at, and they used to talk about, if you're not growing, you're dying. So effectively, you need to be constantly growing, constantly evolving. Otherwise, your business is on a downward turn. You know, it's like the old Nokia story, isn't it? You know, you think you're at the top of your game, but actually, unless you're constantly looking at what's next, Apple's going to come and knock you off your perch. So I think that's a really great message. But is there anything stand out when you were setting the business up that sort of shock's probably a strong word, but maybe surprised you about the setting up of a business, or being in the commercial environment versus the sports world?
The time and effort of management, team management, especially when you're not like you'd be used to different management styles, you know, of talking, you know, of talking different tones or different ways, less direct, more direct, and so on. Just the importance of management, and also how long and actually how consistent you need to be, how on it you need to be in terms of managing people. I'm still learning to like organize myself, you know, because basically as an athlete, everything's done for you. Your nutrition's laid out, your food's there in the morning, your kit's there, it's washed for you, it's your gym program's there, you're told to do this, and all you got to do is just work ridiculously hard. I think going from sport to It's true. Yeah.
But that enables you to work really hard. That's the point, is that, you know, if that structure wasn't there, being able to do all those things would be really difficult. And I guess what you're now having to do is lead a business, run the business, grow the business, and also do everything for yourself.
Yeah, I feel like this is therapy. I like this. Let's dig into this more. Now, it's like, it's just making sure, like, it's the management side, and I think that's why, like, you know, we're trying to look for an MD at the moment, just to go, right, well, they can absolutely drive, keep everyone on track, and allow us to do more founders bits, which is a very typical founders story. You know, like, you might get a tech founder, you know, who might be, you know, head in the computer, might not necessarily have the social skills to be, you know, fully managing teams and so on like that. We're just like a different version of that, I guess. And yeah, I think it's probably more about recognizing your weaknesses or strengths, and making sure you put things in place for it, because you don't have to be the best person for the job in that job. You just have to be the best person for the job in the role you're doing. And I think that's our mindset at the moment. But I've forgotten the original question. I've just talked to you again. I'm sorry.
No, and actually what I was going to say is, because I circled team when you spoke earlier about, you know, creating, you know, good investors around you, bringing people on board. And actually, you know, part of, I guess, what you and Dom have done is really demonstrate, you know, management and leadership are, I think, two different things. And actually, whilst the day-to-day management of the teams might not be where you want or can spend your time, but actually leading the business, being the role models, there's a huge amount of leadership in sport, isn't there? If you think, you know, you're leading on the field, whether, it doesn't matter what position, you have to demonstrate leadership to work at that sort of level. So I'd imagine there's quite a sort of humble, I guess, is what I'm feeling, a sort of humble leadership style within the business, where you recognize your strengths, and you know that, you know, this is going to be a hugely successful business, and you and Dom are part of the charge of leading that, but that actually you need those people around you to come along with you. And that's the art of leadership, isn't it? Bringing people along with you and their desire to. Is that how you feel? Do you feel like you've got that team that's, you know, building to take this to the next level? Because it sounds like Fourfive are going global, to be honest.
Going global. I feel like we're building that team up. Yeah, I really do. I think the hire that we're talking about is a big one for us. They can layer in a bit of experience as well. But yeah, I think we're slowly getting there. Like, it's the Holland & Barrett account that we took on just recently is huge for us. Obviously, they do for a vitamins and wellness company. They are like the mecca for us. And we're really excited to continue on our retail. We've also just signing up with Lloyd's as well. So there's some really good retail bits on that, and I'm looking forward to properly exploring that and making sure that we've got everything aligned so that we can keep rate of sale high and push all the weird and wonderful things you have to do with retail to keep them pleased and to keep the sales going. Yeah,
keep the relationships going. So can you just I thought it'd be really good, actually, if you could maybe just give a snapshot of the type of clients that you have, that you work with really closely, but also the type of products that you're either already distributing or you're looking to develop, just so that those listening get a better understanding of Fourfive. And also, sorry, just to add, if you touch on the community, because one of the things I like about Fourfive is actually you're not just going out to the retail, but you're looking to generate a community of people that actually genuinely buy into your brand and what you do. So two elements to that question there.
Okay, we'll have to split that one up. I already forgot the first one. No, the
first one's about the type of products. Yeah.
In product range, like, we started our company in CBD. We've got a really good, strong CBD offering, and that's like range from tinctures to capsules to topical cool. So things like your joint gel there, it's like almost like a deep heat mixed in with CBD. It's all 100% natural, very clean product. We've also got like a cooling one, which is like a menthol one, which is great as well. Again, 100% natural. And then we've really got like a good strong range of daily essentials, so biotics, fish oils, male, female multivitamins, vitamin C, Vit D, and we've also in the last couple of months brought out a hydration, really nice clean hydration product. So I think what we're trying to do is almost take like your high street retail products, of which sort of there are heaps, but really just make it a significantly cleaner, but also a better product in terms of more like the ingredients within it. So a lot of stuff, and it's like mind-blowing how much is made for like marketing claims, and like, they'll have this amount of this ingredient so that they can make this marketing claim, and it makes it look like it's a brilliant product. And I think for us, we've gone the other way around. We've got some really good formulators in, and basically looked at the products, what's effective, what's actually going to be absorbed. So if you take, for example, in our multivitamin, I'd say 90% of the products in your retailer will have, in a multivitamin, will have calcium carbonate as their calcium source. That is chalk, whereas we'd have calcium ascorbate, which is a lot more absorbable. It will actually be a lot more effective for you. So taking that as like across the board with a number of different things. So taking out artificial sort of fillers and putting in brown rice as our filler, taking hard plastic coated capsules and putting and using vegan like actual, so instead of tablets, using vegan capsules, which again a lot more easy to digest, and then therefore you can absorb a lot more. So I think our products are trying to be well thought out, not just for like how you can market and claim it. And it's the marketing teams for some of these big large companies are phenomenal, and they've done a really good job, and we should probably do a better job of it. But like our formulations, and I guess the intention of what we're trying to do is very much make sure it's a quality product and I guess that's come from the need and the obsession with professional sport and wanting to be the best. That's sort of filtered through in our formulations and as such. So yeah, I'd say we sit like to a mid-premium spec and cost, but it's very much for people who actually want to get something from their vitamins and their products, rather than I guess
pick a box.
Take a box and pay to then let it pass through their system. So that's where I guess
like sweet corn, pointless.
I like sweet corn though.
Oh, I can't stand sweet corn. It's on my list of would never eat, but it's a whole nother conversation. Just go back to that community piece. Sorry, George. The community element. Can you talk to us a bit about the Fourfive community and how you're fostering that?
Yeah, I think it's a huge part. It's a huge part of any brand, I think, and it's something which, if a brand does well, they can obviously benefit from like from I guess like the company and sales and all that sort of things. But for us, it's not something that you have to really plow into it to build to it. And I think for us, it's a large part is like we're all obsessed with sport. We enjoy doing exercise, and we just want to try and take as many along on that journey as possible, and try and get them into good healthy habits. We do some run bits. We do we had a lot of touch rugby over the summer. There's lots of yoga events, loads of different events which we get some of our customers come along to. We've got some really good team players which sort of like from like an ambassadors, but I guess a bit more bought into the company and what we're doing. But yeah, I think it also represents in terms of some of the investors that we've got on board. sort of 15 plus international athletes, really bought into the fact that wellness is a huge area of their of performance essentially, and it's great to have that sort of the backing by some world-class athletes who not only believe in what we're doing from a business point of view, but it's highly linked to what we're doing from a wellness and a product and a quality and a standpoint point of view.
Yeah, brilliant. And I've linked that to the term of corporate athlete, because when people say, oh, well, that's for professional athletes or for military or whatever it is, you actually think, well, to be the best that you can be, in your role, whatever that role is professionally, actually you need to be as fit and healthy as possible. That's mentally, that's physically, that means just doing all the things that, and what I do to keep myself in that space and what you do might be two different things, but there'll be similar themes along that around, okay, what sleep do I need? But, I know I need 7 hours sleep. Whereas my partner needs 5, and it really annoys me because I'm like, I need my 7, because that is just, I know, and I track my sleep. And in fact, I don't need to, because I'm grumpy when I don't get my 7 hours. So I don't need my watch to tell me I've not had enough sleep. But it's that whole thing of, everybody has access to this sort of product, which is great, actually, isn't it? It's not just people in the locker room. It's not just pro sports people, but actually we can all access it and help us to keep as active as we can. Love to just sort of finish on a bit of a golden nugget for people listening. So if someone is about to leave one of those environments right now, whether it's they've been in that structured sports world, or they've been they're in the military, they're leaving, what's the one thing that you wish you'd known before you left that you would share back with those listening?
Oh.
I know, it's a tough one, isn't it? Put you on the spot. Was it in the question pack?
Yeah.
So,
there's a lot of things, to be honest. One thing I think is highly important is just like personal self-organization is such a big thing, especially from, I hear it from my mates in the military as well, but especially from the sports side. Is, like I said before, everything's kind of done for you. It's all routine. It's all mapped out. Like, you have to make big decisions, and you have to, there's high pressure situations, and those sort of things you have to deal with. But everything really day to day is sort of, a lot of it is done for you. So I think just getting in good habits of like not being spoon fed the whole time, and realizing that you'll have to send 40 emails in a day at some point, or and so sending one when you've got a whole day off, a rest day, should be done very easily and shouldn't be seen as like the biggest task of the day. I think so that sort of self-organization is quite big. But yeah, I just think the earlier you can start doing something, even if it's like 1 day a week, or if it's doing an online course, or if it's doing something that just makes you proactively think, makes you speak with other people, because it can be very sheltered, like, a proper bubble within professional sport, and imagine within military as well. Like, the more touch points you can get with different views, different people, the more you realize that organization thing is a big thing, and then it's just less of a cliff face when you do finish up. It's not seen as like, wow, well, my environment's changed, my group of friends have changed, my amount of exercise I do has changed, but also like, I've got to be completely organized myself. I think that's the bigger one, and I think if the sooner someone can get that in place, or at least get that realization and get plans in place for how they're going to adapt to that, then less, the easier the transition will be, but I also think less, mental health and all those sort of areas, which are pretty steep post transition for athletes and for military.
Yeah, interestingly, I was speaking at an event towards the back end of last year, and I ran a poll online before the event, and I shared the results on the day. And one of the polls was asking people before they left what they thought their biggest challenges were going to be around the 3 pillars that I really focus on, which is financial, physical, and mental health. And the majority said they thought they would struggle financially and not physically or mentally. And then the ones that had left said that their biggest struggles were mental and physical health and not financial. And I think that's the point, isn't it? That if you know that there are going to be challenges, you are going to have to adapt your mindset, facts, that is going to happen. But it's about prepare, and also then saying, well, so for me, for example, obviously the first thing I used to do when we had to be up stupid o'clock and we're training. Well, I still get up stupid o'clock and go training. I'm running back from the gym at 6:30 this morning to get ready for my meet. But I need that, and that's the point. It's putting things in place where you go, I can still get my fix. I just need to get my fix in another way, and it's trying to make those plans and know when you're falling out of that. So I don't know about you, but when I fall out of my structure, I also know about it, and professionally, it shows. So I think it's that whole thing of just manage yourself, self-awareness, self-organization. I think that's a really brilliant message. George, thank you so much for your time. I feel like I could keep chatting, and I'm sure that those listening would love to keep listening to you, and everything that you've achieved. But I'd love to have you back on it, year, 2 years, when if at that point when Fourfive is huge, even bigger than it is now, to hear more about your journey. But thank you so much, and good luck to you and Dom and the team with everything that you're doing. So, and remember, never say never. We might see you on the rugby field sometime soon. Maybe sometime soon. No, I'm joking. Or maybe not. Not playing.